So welcome to the WOW Empress Codes Intentional Journal Readings. And during this segment, it's all about aligning with your true dominion destiny for this life phase. What we do during this time is focus on unlocking your life codes. And this is about helping you to be able to move forward, especially in the present moment. I am the WOW Empress AliNICOLE WOW. And the motto that I use during this segment is that your new now destiny codes, they aren't found in the stars or in the cards, they are found in the life codes. And one of the things that we focus on during this time is talking about the practice of intentional journaling and how it helps to decode and recode one's reality, basically aligning them with their highest divine destiny trajectory. And this simple practice of using intentional journaling is really to provide these prompts and these triggers and do what I call extracting the divine encoding so that it is bringing forth the unique information for one's individuality. And that's how they start to design their life phase, for this time. So I'm always happy to be joined by my STAR Queen Celebrity-preneur Protégé, Gina Gardiner. And she's going to be joining me for this intentional journal reading segment. We always have a great time. And what we do during these segments is that we feature several individual and also co-authored intentional journal style publications, and we see which ones are going to come up during the time of our reading. So we actually do have a core focus for this particular segment. We're going to be talking about accelerate your new empathic way of beingness for higher service. This is a very important topic as it relates to empaths, but really not only empaths, also anyone of great influence that really needs to be accelerating their calling during this time, but also learning how to be sensitive to the times and just the needs for services. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this unfolds. So as always, Gina, thank you so much for being here with me. I always love that we can have these experiences and bring them to the public to benefit.
Well, thank you very much for having me on the show and being part of this such an important time and such an incredibly powerful message that people need to be taking on board.
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly. And it's always my delight, to have you with me. We always have such a great time doing these and how the divinity just flows because we never know how it's going to happen. These segments just take on a life of its own, and the publications certainly take on a life of their own as we are guided, to specific ones. But we do have specific publications that we are actually going to feature today. And before I actually have you to share the ones that you have present that you'll be able to feature, I want to just mention that since we're talking about acceleration and the calling for empaths during this time, there are two of publications that I'm going to mention, and then Gina has one of her own for the acceleration, and then she also has one that we've co-authored, together that we're going to be featuring and getting present with those in just a little bit. But we'll see what other ones come up because Gina also has a series for empaths. And so we're going to actually feature those in just a moment. But the main ones that we're going to talk about today is what we're going to focus on now. So before I actually have her to share those, one of the ones that I created that's called A Call to Acceleration for Empathic Influencers. It's the art of embodying a new empathic leaderpreneur expression to step into a higher call to service. And it is a self-audit and action planner. And then there's another one that's called the New High-End Empathicpreneur Accelerator. It's a high-end discovery journal and video training action planner for accelerated empathic entrepreneurs. And so Gina has one that is called Accelerate Your Empathic Potential. You want to read that subtitle for us?
Discovering new levels of your limitless purpose as an empathic leader, a self-assessment action planner.
Great. Looking forward to being present with that for sure. And then one that we've co-authored together is the new high-end empathic leaderpreneur acceleration factor, excuse me. And would you read that subtitle?
An introduction to discovering your higher call to service as a leading empathic influencer, a VIP day acceleration workbook, a workspace planner.
Okay, great. All right. So those are going to be the two main features for this particular session here. So Gina, what I'm going to have you to do is share your empathic series, because those could very much come up, as well.
So we start off with, are you an empath? Discovering your true identity and purpose. And this is an intentional workbook to explore who you really are and the significance of that role as we move into a new era of consciousness. So that's for people at the beginning of their recognition, in fact, finding out, am I an empath? And if so, what does that mean? And then the next one in the series is harnessing the power of being an empath. And that's a self-exploration and empathic empowerment guide for tapping into your limitless potential. So that's the next one. And then the next one after that is stepping into your genuine power as an empath. And that's a 30-day intensive bootcamp workbook to expand and accelerate your journey as an empath. And then accelerate your empathic potential, discovering new levels of your limitless purpose as an empath leader, a self-assessment action planner. And then there's one other in the series, which is sharing your empathic journey the right way, WRITE. And that's how to use your experience to serve your higher purpose, leveraging writing and publishing.
Yes. And then we have the one for the soaring, right? Soaring as an empath?
Yes, we have Soaring to New Heights as an empath. That's an intentional journal and action planner to help successful business leaders achieve the next level of success and profitability. So, so that's a Soaring to New Heights. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Actually, that's Soaring to New Heights as a business leader.
Yeah, I was looking at that one. I was like, no, that's not the one for empaths, but that can be used.
Oh, there it is. It was hiding. Sorry.
It popped itself out, so that means it wants to be a part of this segment here. Yes. Okay. Yes. So Soaring to New Heights as an empath.
As an empath.
Subtitle.
The intentional journal for powerful empaths who are ready to take things to the next level.
Great. All right. And I just thought is that we have other empathic ones. Another one that you and I co-authored together, and it's the Profitable. Yes, that one. So give us the title and the subtitle for that one.
That's harnessing your empathic, profitable phoenixpreneur power, rising in new levels of your entrepreneurial empowerment and profit potential for high-end success. And that's a customized mini course creation planner. I do need to have my teeth in.
Those titles. Awesome. There's also the Ruby Red Riches. So do we have that one available as well? Okay.
Yeah. There's the Red Root Riches for empathic entrepreneurs, the basics of a new dimensional root chakra healing for grounding your financial success and more. And it's a journal prompts planner.
Yes, great. And so those possibly could come up. We just want to make sure that we've covered the bases in terms of the empathic publications that we have available for display during this time. And so there's a whole plethora of other journals that we have, as I mentioned before, we've individually authored, and some, that have been co-authored as well. And those publications could very well integrate themselves, within this particular session here. So before we get started, let's take about 3 deep breaths, please.
Okay.
Okay. All right. All right. So since we're going to be talking about accelerating the empathic way of beingness as it relates to, higher service. So Gina, you're always so great in terms of the trigger jump off, so to speak, of being able to set us up. So do you want to talk about the importance of this acceleration, or just whatever is coming up, for you around this, and then we can kind of have some dialogue around this before we start getting present with the 2 core featured journals and just seeing whichever other ones may present themselves.
I've worked with many empaths over the years, as you know.
Mhm.
One of the things that has struck me in the past has been how often empaths find a reason not to get on with things.
Mhm.
They procrastinate, that it's got to be perfect before they start, or there's got to be an R in the month, or they've got to feel inspired, or there is some reason why
Are in the month.
they are not getting on with things. And this sabotage that they engage in comes from a whole raft of different reasons. And it was always important to move people on in the past. That was always part of my role, was to help people get going and to see past all of these barriers that they put in the way in order to become step into their power and be their best selves. But over the time I've worked with you, and certainly what appears to be happening, is the need for acceleration has become even more critical.
Yes.
And that, all of those empaths who are, in my family word for it is faffing about,
Yes.
on with things. The damage that does is at a number of levels. One is the more you keep yourself contained in this limited way of being because you're fearful of failing, or you're fearful of success, which I think is often true of empaths. They're fearful of finding their voice, their true voice.
Right.
Is that not only does that hold you back, but you've been here, you come with a divine purpose, and your divine purpose as an empath is to be of service and to make a difference to humanity. And you've only got to listen to the news and to watch social media, or pretty well anything, is to recognize that the human race is at a watershed, and it's never needed the input of empaths bringing true light, bringing a sense of hope, bringing a recognition that actually out of the chaos will come something that's much better and will move us into a whole new era of humanity's history.
Right.
But if you delay, then you can't help people. And the people who you help, who are going to be in the vanguard, the leaders of the leaders, if you like, they are then kept stuck because you're not helping them. And so it ripples out, and it becomes even more critical in terms of the number of people who need to be helped by you and could be helped by you, but meanwhile you're faffing about because it's not perfect, or because you're anxious about it, not doing the right thing, or you just aren't quite sure where to go.
Right.
So all of our works are about helping people recognize that they are on a journey, that they don't have to do it alone, but they do need to get going, and that you have to start with the first step and then just keep going. And we need to speed up in terms of our own personal evolution, so we can help others evolve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that and setting the stage, because this is very important. It's vital. And you've heard me say several times how we are behind in evolution. And the empaths were the ones who were here to help set the stage to unlock the new divine encodings for humanity to step more into even their empathic sensitivity as this new world is emerging. So when there's these stalls and delays that have been chronic, throughout centuries at this point, and then even with all the personal and professional development that has been out there for years, you have the empaths that still have been lagging behind.
Yeah.
And so now it's past time for the acceleration. And now understanding within this acceleration, understanding what their next level contributions are to the world.
Yeah.
And these higher levels of service. And then, as you know, that I teach in the high end aspect, because that's where a new definition empath, that's their residing place, if you will. That's what they're oriented for. And so the older structures, they're very much allergic to those older structures. And even the older structures of how they make their impact and income, those different opportunities, for works of service and life purpose in those old structures. A new definition empath, which is one that is evolved, would not be able to participate in those. It goes against the new nature. So that's why they hear, even in what we're sharing, a lot of the works that are going to be featured today in terms of the primary works are about, high-end energy.
Yeah.
And higher service, and being able to accelerate the potential, which is, the publication that you have. And I feel that that's the one we need to start with in terms of being present with that particular one. Do you feel that as well, as we start with your accelerate your empathic potential?
What's really interesting is that everything is in piles, and that one has slipped off the pile and is sitting on its own.
Well, then I guess that says something.
It's just telling us something, isn't it? So there we are.
And it's so interesting, because let me preface this before we get started here. That this particular publication, in a sense, is actually why we're having this session, because it hit itself in a previous segment. And then normally when that happens with a publication, that we know it was put in a certain place and somehow it just vanishes, in a sense, we know that means that it's trying to get our attention, so we come back and actually do a core focus around that. So now it's wanting to be the spotlight too, of shining on its own in a little spot there. So yes, we're going to start with you. So okay, so you be present, with that, and whatever comes up, it will be the trigger that we'll jump off from.
So what's jumping off the page is empathic influencers have the capacity to deepen the development of the collective consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Failure to embrace your role as an empathic leader will not only limit you, but will hold back the development of those who are waiting for your help to become awakened. I've no doubt you're helping others. After all, most empaths know that a vital part of their purpose is to help others. It's not the intention to serve others which I'm challenging. Having worked with many empaths, I've come to recognize that many are doing great, really powerful work, and yet are barely scratching the surface of their potential to help the human race at this critical time, within its evolution. Just like an iceberg shows a tiny proportion of its might above the surface of the ocean, many empaths have the potential to unleash unlimited power for good when they have the courage to give themselves permission to become their best self.
To become their best self. And so thank you so much for sharing that. So as we're talking today about the acceleration of a new empathic way of being for a higher level of service, it is important to start with that potential, that right now potential, and the best self that you're talking about, accelerating into that best version, because that best version of the empathic self is what's going to be able to carry out these higher levels of service, right?
Yes.
And tapping into that potential, because as you mentioned, they barely scratched the surface of their potential.
Yeah.
And so now where we are at this stage where the acceleration is a must, it's not optional, you know, catching up with their evolution and coming into this grander space so that they can serve at the higher capacity. And as you and I, along with our other, dear Queen colleague as well and friend, did a series for accelerating. The series was called Accelerate or Be Uprooted, and it was for empaths, and it was a very serious nature call series. So we're at this point again where a new window has opened up as an extension, in a sense, for empaths to start really accelerating. At one point, that window was really closing, but there seems to be almost like a final call, in a sense, to come around, to start syncing up, to understand the new way in a very accelerated format. So as we're talking today about this, the feeling that I get is in terms of, in this, if you want to call it a final call, to accelerate or evaporate, or it's not even be uprooted at this point. It is evolve or evaporate, meaning you want to reach your greater potential and you don't want to fall into roles that are not going to be most aligned for this new trajectory. And so within that, accelerating this new empathic way of beingness, I feel that I need to talk a little bit about some of the characteristics of a new definition empath. And new definition empaths are ones who are very much, they're evolved, they're awakened, they're empowered, and they are evolved. And they are very much accelerated. They're accelerated in their awakening, and they're very much activated into the newer frameworks, and because they're operating out of their divine empathic encoding. So something that we talk about in this particular segment is about the life codes and how being able to discover those and unlock those through the power of intentional journaling. So empaths have, the new definition empaths have a unique encoding within them. And once that encoding is awakened, then the life format plays out very differently. And it's what I call the decode to recode of a reality. But how they actually get into their own information and start really unlocking these this unique encoding is through the intentional journaling process. So a new definition empath is going to be one who is consistent with pressing into the new. So they're not giving airtime to the old because they've been through a unique metamorphosis. And if you think about the metamorphosis of a butterfly, of a caterpillar to a butterfly, there is the breakdown within the chrysalis of unformed that comes into a new form, old data that is replaced by new data because it's becoming a new creation, a new entity. It doesn't go through that process and become a bigger caterpillar. It becomes something completely different. So when we hear about that transformational process, because that's what most liken it to, I teach it from an evolutionary standpoint because it evolves into something completely different. It doesn't just transform like a frog goes from, well, a tadpole then grows up to be a bigger frog. That's just transformation into a bigger human, not human, the bigger of that species. The difference here in this type of metamorphosis is that a caterpillar becomes something else. So even with an empath ends up becoming something else in its orientation. So it does not have the traditional characteristics that most would label, in the sense that a lot of empaths have in common: attracting narcissists, feeling very burdened down from the world around them, being extremely highly sensitive to, the emotions and energies of other people. In the new format, there's more of the superpower, superhuman, super divine energy. And I know a lot of times they try to attribute those superpowers by saying that empaths have superpowers. But what they don't understand is that that's an encoding. So let me go back real quick to the caterpillar. Every caterpillar is encoded to become a butterfly. However, every caterpillar does not become a butterfly. Some of them never even make it into the cocoon because they're in that caterpillar state and they live that life and somehow expire by whatever means. Some enter into the cocoon or the chrysalis state, and then they don't come into full format, because within that process of that breakdown, it's like a chemicalization of old form waiting to emerge into something new. So in the human format of this, or the empathic format, which has been a primary work of mine throughout the years, of the divine human butterfly. So just because empaths in the human format, obviously, enter into processes, they don't necessarily become a new creation. Why is this? Because they don't tap into the new encoding. They don't give more attention to the new that's emerging. They'll stay stuck in cycles, repeating history, going over what they've been through, all these different things, and why they can't do X, Y, and Z. And not understanding is that they're no longer that form. And that's old data that's trying to go away, where there's new data that has emerged. They don't press into that. Therefore, they don't become evolved. Do they transform in a sense? They do. They transform into something that is unformed, that has to come into some form, or it ceased to exist. So I want to talk about this in terms of life purpose. When we don't come into a form of a new creation, that means that we become stagnant. We become in a nothingness, which means our life purpose becomes in that same format as well. This is what Gina was mentioning when she was talking about how empaths can talk about the great works that they do, but then they procrastinate and they stall and they don't get into the newer potential. So what happens is that they find themselves in roles and services that will have them operating less than their higher functionality as these superhuman divine expressions. So though it's talked about that empaths have this great power, but again, most don't understand, but that new power resides in an encoding through a metamorphosis. The encoding is there, but the extraction of that potential doesn't get tapped into. So then what we find is the continuation of going around in cycles. Then we have more leadership that's teaching people how to become empowered and evolve to a certain extent, but not teaching them how to be metamorphosized. So now this brings us to talking about the time for acceleration, that the metamorphosis has to take place fairly quickly. And Gina and I have actually done a publication too, even from the financial aspect and the multimillionaire monarch experience for empaths, because empaths have a very unique encoding in the new definition, and it is in the high end work. And within the high end work, which we don't have that publication available. That was the one that I'm talking about, is the multimillionaire.
Yeah.
We don't have that one, but it is one. We do have the other versions of the millionaire ones that are just for transformational leaders and just people in general, but the one that's for the one of the multimillionaire ones that we don't have present is for the empaths. So I just brought that up really just to talk about the encoding of this high-end work, this high-end life. And a lot of times empaths struggle financially. And it's because they have these unique trajectories that's in the new definition energy. So going back to the acceleration, now that I've given some context about a few things around the new definition empath, as long as an empath still is playing to the old story and the old disempowered energy, and they keep focusing on and regurgitating where they've come out of, and they keep stalling or so, they're not coming into the metamorphosis, and they can't get over into this higher level of livelihood, but the potential that Gina was talking about that keeps getting not tapped into. So in this accelerating, in this new way of beingness, so that an empath can expand into this higher level of service, this is where we want to give our attention to during this time. And even though there may be some who listen to this who aren't at that evolved state, this is where publications like the ones Gina was mentioning, that's in her series, are going to help to even accelerate an empath to come into the understandings of their different levels of power, even before they actually tap into more of the metamorphosis codes. Those would be required. So now that we do know that there's some who have been empowered and some who now are like, okay, I get this. Now here's the shift in terms of accelerating and getting into this new potential. So with that being said, what's actually coming up for me is to, for you, Gina, to actually be with the empathic, the red root riches. That one feels right to come up even before we get into, yes, before we get into the high-end one. So give me a moment just to be present with this, because something else I want to bring up is that empaths are really called to not just the high-end space, but into the empathic entrepreneurial space and the leaderpreneurial space, right? They're leaders, but they have to come in this entrepreneurial format. And so, as I mentioned, how empaths often have struggles with finances. And as I also mentioned before, their orientation is allergic to these different structures and even the financial structures. And that's why they have to press into the new energy. So we're going to do just a little bit of the root chakra work here, because that's what I'm feeling is coming up. So Gina's going to be present with this. And when I say doing some of the work, meaning whatever comes out of what she's present with, we'll do some jump off from there as a trigger, even though this publication offers a process to kind of go through that of being present, but we'll just see what this space is requiring during this time. So, you know, so Gina, I will allow you to be present, and whatever comes up, we're going to work with that.
So the root chakra is considered the basis for stability, grounding, physical energy, willpower, and security. Our financial core energy is housed in our root chakra and must be healthy in order to achieve and/or sustain financial success. Most empaths often struggle with finances due to an unhealthy root chakra. This causes discord and inharmonious activity with the rest of your chakras. In order to restore harmony and new balance, empaths must learn how to use non-traditional approaches to chakra healing and enter into new dimensions of the chakras.
Okay, so let's be present with this, because the work that I do even in this area is with new colors and new dimensions, and taking not just empaths, but people in general into these newer dimensions of the chakras that are outside of the traditional premises and foundations that are fundamentals, if you will, that we learn about. So even someone who has no clue what the fundamentals of the traditional chakra work is that's fine, because we're approaching it from a new vibration. So during this time, I want everyone to close their eyes and take about 5 deep breaths. And Gina, when you are on your 5th breath, you can prompt,
Okay.
and then we can go into kind of a little subtle process.
Okay.
Okay. So actually what is coming up now, and this may sound a little funny to most, is that so the chakras are these disc of lights, so to speak, and they have different colors, and the root chakra normally is red, even in going into the newer dimensions. But during this time, some of you may actually see the color black in these newer dimensions, because we're actually going to go into what would be the new empathic encoding in the root chakra. So what was coming up in terms of something to focus on and imagine, this may sound funny, is to focus actually on an apple or cherries or strawberries. So it's red fruit that's coming up. And to me, what this is representing is new roots and new fruit. So there's going to be new anchoring at this time, new fruitfulness that plays out in one's experience. So whatever comes to mind, I want you to be present with that. And so Gina, what I'm going to have you to do is actually be a demonstration in this. So as you're being present with whatever, fruit comes to mind, what is the vibration or the energy or a message that may be coming from that? And before you actually mention that, as you're being present, I just want to provide for others is that this is what you're going to be being present with during this time, is what is that fruit speaking? Because whatever that fruit is speaking, or the vibe that you're getting, is speaking very much to, is a financial trigger, and how you're going to be fruitful and prosperous and anchor yourself in this new awareness of financial abundance to be fruitful. So Gina, when you're ready, and don't feel rushed.
So for me, it's cherries. And there are
Okay.
a number of different things that are coming, thinking around it. Number one is I'm in the UK. Cherries will be coming into blossom in the next few weeks. And it's a very short window. The blossom has to be fertilized by the bees. If the weather is cold or wet or rainy, then the crop will be poor. When the bees are there and the sun is shining, the crop is heavy and abundant. And it just seems to me that the parallel that I'm drawing is, now is the time to be ready for the fertilization. If you miss it,
Yes.
the season is gone.
Right. That goes back to that acceleration.
Yeah.
And windows of opportunity.
So that would be the first strand that comes to me. The second is that if you think of the fruit of the cherry, it often comes with 2 cherries, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Joints. And I think part of this is that there's your human earthly part of you. But there is then this connection with source, with God, with.
Yes.
As an empath, one of the things that strikes me is the level of sensitivity to that connection, of the potential to have. But it's only going to happen if you are ready and open for it.
Right.
And that's part of the being ready in terms of the fertilization, is actually opening yourself up to that connection with your inner wisdom, but also with source.
Absolutely. Beautifully stated. Love that. Yes. Love that. And so with any fruit too, I love how you brought that up, because the thing you said about coming into bloom, blossoming, and that's the thing, it is time to blossom.
Mm.
And with any fruit, there is a season when, you hear this fruit is more in season. And even some fruits that you can get all year round, they have a season where it's a better crop of it, or it grows better during a certain time,
And of the three fruits that you mentioned, cherries have the shortest season, certainly
Yeah.
in the UK. There's about 6, maximum 8 weeks when there are cherries in season. And we live quite close to some cherry farms, absolutely fabulous cherries, but they're very, very short-lived.
But they're very, very short-lived, right? And so
it makes them so special because they're such a treat.
Right. And we have to see, going back to the empaths, they have to see that there are times where there's a financial window too, and a profitability window, where you have to either plant and harvest during that time, or there's a harvest to be reaping. And if you're asleep during your harvest time, you can't. You won't get it. You'll miss it. And then there's a time lapse, because that's a short window that you have to execute in. So there's no time for stalling. So these higher levels of service too are coming in these windows, in a sense, that you have to kick into your new empathic way of being and jump into the space, maximize your potential, and then start in these higher levels of service that are then going to bring you into this more fruitful harvest. And what's going to be required for these new missions are going to be these uncommon ways of resourcefulness and other higher levels of resource, because the impact that you're here to make in the world is going to require a new level of financial abundance. And so there can't be any, I'm in this type of service and I'm giving everything away for free, or I don't feel worthy of this or this. That's old energy. It has no place in the new, and the new is what is required. And so being fruitful and grounding with your root chakra for the new roots and the new fruit, which is actually a more expanded work of mine that I do. But this coming up during this time, where actually that particular publication that Gina is reading from, the process within there actually has you focusing on different gems, and I believe so. But this space is not calling for this, because what it's saying is that it is time to be fruitful. It's time to blossom. But even as you're blossoming, there's also going to be time to start planting the new and having yourself planted and grounded. So as this new financial abundance is here, and you need to be awake to it, there's also the opportunity to be seeding for the next level. So it's a dual purpose that's working here.
And so I think that is where the 2 cherries come, isn't it?
Absolutely. But also it is the time to cross-pollinate. So on that note, what I'm going to have you do, the 2 bee publications that you have, the Bee Water Cross Industry Factor, and then also the Becoming a Billionaire blog tourpreneur. So what we're going to do is hold those energies up. Now, whether we go in them or not, we may not, but we'll just be present with those, because the bee energy came up. So we want to honor, that. And so if you can't find the bee water one, then let's just bring up the bee but I'm feeling that the Be Water one should be one, because that one is more about the gardening, the cross-pollination. But I'll speak to it, I'll speak to it regardless. The Be Water cross industry factor, that should be one present. Unless it's hiding itself so we can come back and do something else around it. These publications,
They
they
certainly have a life of their own.
yes, they do. It's the one with the water, in
I
the
found it. I
Okay,
found
great.
it. It was in a
Awesome.
different pile. That's why I
Okay,
found
so
it.
great. So if you
Anybody who can't see here, I've got piles of, I'm surrounded by different piles of books with different
yes,
themes.
yes.
So
And the thing about it, she's extremely organized with them, but what happens is these publications, they take a life of their
they're
own.
all sorted out into pots.
Yes, yeah, they do.
And
They
then
take a life of their own.
So this is the Be Water cross-industry factor, the basics of cross-pollinating and watering industries for impact and increase, a journal planner.
Yes, okay.
So that's that one. And then this one is the Becoming a Billionaire Blog Tourpreneur, Becoming a Billionaire Blog Tourpreneur, an emerging bloggingpreneur's dream quest composition planner for designing a billionaire cross-pollination blog tour empire experience.
Yes, okay, so hold those two vibrations up. Those are two publications of mine. The Be Water Cross Industry Factor is one of my older throwback ones. So I'm just being present with these energies, and I want you to be present with them as well, Gina, because what's coming up is that we know that with this cross-pollination energy and these higher levels of service, this is where empaths are really going to find a lot of their next levels of service, just like even for yourself, understanding the creating in these different dimensions and these different strands and preparing for the higher end work, but also to be diversifying your giftings so that you can be more massive and more expansive. So this comes back even to the power, the superpowers, if you will, that empaths have, the ability to be sensitive to different industries and to be able to create content and services and offers opportunities for these different industries. And the writing aspect is one of the primary gateways. And a workshop that Gina and I, or masterclass that we facilitated, Gina hosted it and I provided the training, and then also our wonderful Queen colleague, Brenda Jacobson, also participated. She's an empath as well. And she actually taught on the root chakra aspect, with from the traditional, premise within that workshop. And I actually have a publication, two publications that are stemmed from that. It was called Highly Sensitive to High End, the right WRITE way. And I bring that up because, like I mentioned, writing is the primary gateway into being these keys to open up and unlock different dimensions to serve different industries. So before we actually go there, what Gina will share, as you can see, Gina has even a whole series, and I've got tons of publications as well in terms of for empaths, but she has even present with her all of those publications in a series just for the empathic community. And then, like she said, if you look around, if you could see around her, she's covered with publications. And you've published over 30 books now, right?
Yeah.
Right. Myself, we don't even want to go there. It's like it's
I don't know, divide by 3, yes.
Yeah, it's over 300, works on Amazon. But those are pollen, what we call, that's pollinating and creating, where we're serving a variety of different industries. So Gina's got ones that are for leaders. She's got one about gardening. She's got things on health. You name it, we have tons of publications. This is part of the empathic way of unlocking this unique coding, clearing old purposes and things out of the system so that the newer expansion can emerge. And so a lot of the publications that we'll be focusing with too, even these ones that are coming up, we never know which ones are going to come up, and here those are. I'm thinking we're going to be focused just on the acceleration ones, but being present because other ones present themselves. And as you can see, that's what's happening. So at the beginning, when I was naming some of the publications that I will have featured as it relates to the acceleration, and two that are on the high end. And then now you're hearing about a billionaire type of experience, right? And I've actually mentioned about a multi-millionaire monarch, experience for empaths. That is giving the indication of the levels that we are supposed to be participating in terms of our new empathic encoding and services that will lead to this type of experience. So that just goes to show that there can't be in this type of experience that older energy in terms of, oh, I don't want to charge. I don't feel like that has no place here. So now is the time to cross-pollinate. Now is the time to be operating in the double or more. So like the cherries, as Gina mentioned, the cherries come in like 2 by 2, right?
They do.
Mhm. And so when you're being fruitful, fruits come in bunches. You rarely can just go to the store. You can't just really buy one apple. You're going to buy it in a bunch, in a bag, right? With several apples. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't get single ones, but typically you've got to buy some and weigh them, or they're already in bags. Strawberries come in bunches when you purchase them. Yeah. So go ahead.
They come in a punnage, don't they?
But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's about being fruitful, not just a fruit here, and as Gina mentioned, the bees come in and there's a short window of time when the pollination takes place for the blossoming, for all these different things. So you have to look at this the same way. Even when you're an empath and you're being in this bee energy to be the pollinator, there's a time to create the pollen, there's a time to create the honey, okay? So in all of this, you are here to blossom yourself, but you're here to put the seeds out and things to bring forth the blossoming and blooming in the world in different industries. So Gina, I'm going to allow you to go ahead and share whatever came up for you.
So this is what came up. As a cross-industries gardener, you have to be water and know that you're prepared at any time to adapt to new ways of beingness as you pollinate and water different arenas with your wisdom. As you best prepare to show up ready to serve, allow yourself to be rid of any of your previous biases and/or whatever you believe is best for your tribe, and be open to a higher level of truth and solutions to unfold for greater impact and increase.
Wow. Now, how timely is that, right? In talking about a new way of beingness, a new way of empathic beingness, right?
Yes.
So beingness in terms of BEE-ingness at the, today. And so understanding that new ways, and that's what we've been talking about, new ways of being, new ways now of serving, being water. You're the both the seeds and the water, and source gives the increase. So you have to operate in these dual strands. So you're being the water, when you think about gardening, and Gina can definitely talk about this for days, in terms of the processes. I come from a background of gardeners, long history of vegetable gardening, flowers, you name it. And everything. And so when you think about just the processes, a gardener has to both do what? Plant, seed, water, cultivate, harvest, all those different things. You as an empath have to be EEE, all of those things. But normally your functionalities will come in at least in 2 pair. So in this case, as Gina was reading, you've got to be water. But also in the publication, you've got to be the pollinator. You've got to be the seed dropper. You have to be doing more than one function to bring about. But when you're doing that, there's a short window. Now, Gina, you know this even with whether gardening vegetables or gardening flowers or so. There's like different flowers like tulips or different things. There's certain times you have to plant and there's a certain way you have to plant. And so the point in saying this in terms of acceleration, there can't be any stalling around in any of this because these processes are requiring quick and swift attention and then starts the next level of nurturing. So Gina, did you want to speak to any of that before getting present with the other publication?
Just to say to people, if you feel it's overwhelming, all of this, I think it's time to just, that's old stuff.
Right.
If you get out of your own way, it will fall into place. You don't have to know everything before you start. It is about getting started and tuning in, and it will come. But so many people get stuck either because they don't get started, or when something doesn't go because they've got a blueprint of how it should be, but that's old stuff. When you're open to what comes, then that helps you accelerate because you're not constantly putting barriers in the way.
Exactly. Right. Oh, that was so perfectly stated. Oh, couldn't have said it better. That was great. Thank you. I agree wholeheartedly. Okay, so if anything from the other one, or
I've just opened it to have
okay.
a look.
Yeah, and there may not be anything from that. It just just could be just energetically that we know it's time to be and be in this higher state of awareness of where the mindset should be shifting at this time. So that one may be more vibrational than anything, but we'll still just allow some time in case.
Right. So what jumps out are 3 questions.
Okay.
What is it that I want?
Mm-hmm.
What's my quest?
Yes.
And what's my dream?
What's my dream?
And
yes.
what I'd like to preface that with is not the dream that you think that you ought to have,
right.
Not the dream that other people have told you that you should have, but when there is, you don't put any, yeah, but I couldn't, or this is too difficult, when you actually dream your dream with no filters, no buts. What does that dream look like?
Right. So let's be present with that. Yeah. What is it that you want? What is your quest? What is your dream?
So
go ahead. I was just about to say, Gina.
I was going to say, if you want me to share, I'm going to start with my dream first because that's what I want, and that is my quest. And my dream is to support humanity in its growth at a global level, to create a foundation of people who will come using the same principles and the same real passion to support and help and grow people into the light, to become enlightened leaders. And that will be, I'll have a living legacy while I am alive and able to drive it and support it, but that it will have gained the momentum that long after I leave this earth, that it will continue to go and be a significant beacon of light. Absolutely. That supports people, bringing them in a connected way to support one another and the environment. Absolutely. And that's such a beautiful dream, a beautiful quest and a beautiful dream. Yeah. And speaking of the living legacy, but also what extends on, one thing we know is that writings live forever, don't they? Yeah. Yeah. And that's why it's important
for empaths to really be allowing themselves to be expressive through writing. And the formats that we offer are very simple formats, but also too, the opportunity to create sacred space for individuals.
Yeah.
So it's not about writing big books or anything like that. Sometimes you're creating a simple journal or a simple composition for people to actually be able to express themselves. And so sometimes creating that sacred space and an opportunity for people to get out their own information. Because again, going back to where the life codes are within the information that's within individuals, and not so much of what they're inundated with a lot of different information from what they read and from other books or things on the internet or however. When we have these intentional journal processes, again, they provide prompts and triggers to stimulate the new energy out and the new information. And though simultaneously what takes place is that there is some old information that comes out, but the new is coming out too. And it's all kind of coming up together, but the new is what starts to overtake in order for individuals to create their reality anew. And that's what I call the decoding to recoding. So going back to the empathic, experience, with this, is that when you create these spaces for other people, whether they're empaths or not, you are providing a contribution to the world to participate in exactly what Gina was talking about in terms of leveling up humanity at every different phase and era. How do we level up humanity? When each individual can do their part to be their absolute best based on the new template that is unique for them. You can only build a new world and newer constructs with newer methods. As the old saying, old keys won't open new doors. And also too, continuing to repeat old foundations and old different things. You can't, there's another saying about new ways or something like that, you can't do the old to get into the new. You have to do some new activities. So as long as we are stimulating people to bring forth the continued new for each life phase, that is what will continue to change this world. And so even though publications in some cases can be timeless, like what Gina's talking about and what we've been talking about, and me mentioning how we create publications, these will live on because this will always be information that is relevant. Because the relevance of you and your truth at every phase is always going to be relevant, right, Gina?
And I think there's another dimension for me, is
absolutely
that in the writing of them, not only are you leaving, providing somebody with that wisdom, that experience, that opportunity to think things differently, but in the very process of writing, you look at your thoughts and your beliefs and how you got there. And it's always been thought that by teaching somebody else, you actually not only consolidate your own learning, but you actually move forward. And I think one of the big things about this, particularly for empaths, is that by going through the process and sorting out which particular bits are important and why do I want to share that you actually move yourself on. And certainly I believe that one of the reasons for my own acceleration is that of creating these books which make you think, is that still valid for me now? It may be valid for people who are coming behind,
right?
But it's actually old stuff, and how do I language the new forward?
Right.
And so it's been an incredibly powerful process And in a
Mhm.
way, it's the Rolls Royce of journaling, isn't it? It's
Yes,
creating the
yes,
book.
absolutely.
Because for me, it's always, what can I put on paper that's going to be of value to someone else?
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. Yes, I do. Yes. And so there's such richness in what you shared. And so I want others to really anchor that, to take that and really ground that for themselves and be rooted, within what you shared. Because all of this that's going on is about the newer energy
Mm.
and taking the time during this space to accelerate in thought process. So there's nothing about trying to filter or funnel or any of this.
No.
What it is, this is the new way of moving forward
Yes.
and embracing that and accepting that, and then starting to move in that energy in the most accelerated way.
Yeah.
So we were talking about the pollination aspect, and then I mentioned that there's also a time to be the honey. So as going through these processes of focusing on what is it that you want, what is your quest, what is your dream, think of it in the higher context in which what Gina was talking about, in terms of this greater contribution to your life and to others, and how you step into this new energy to be in these dual roles at whatever time, whatever phase you find yourself in, you're gonna be divinely called and guided. But at the same time, understanding that even as you may be waiting to emerge into, however, because that does happen, there's different processes that sync up different phases of the evolution. There's always something to be doing. But now is the time you have to accelerate what you're doing, and writing is the best way to start moving in that direction. So on the note of that, if there's nothing else to share, because the bee work actually in terms of the honey is going to be getting more into the higher end aspect of the services and things. So what can happen is that we before we start being present with even the other acceleration journal, this would probably be a good time for me to do a screen share if you want to enable that for me.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
I hit the wrong button. Here we go.
Okay. Am I good to go?
Yep, you are now.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is come over to two of my publications that are on Amazon, and we're going to be present with these two and see what possibly comes up. And then we'll come back and be present with the one that Gina has, because that particular one is going to be one that's of the more expansive aspect in terms of the high end. So I press screen share, but I'm not seeing, at least I thought I did. Maybe I didn't choose. Okay, there we go.
I can say you're definitely the host now.
Yes, I am. Okay, so now, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So I think it's important that before we actually go into the higher end aspect for the empathic influencer work, that we come to this particular one here that is really about the higher call to service. And that's really what we're talking about today, is the higher call to service. But I also have been talking about how the higher call to service is typically going to be the high end work, because that's what new definition empaths are oriented for, higher service that is high end work. But this particular one here is more of a setup, and it really complements Gina's journal or workbook. The Accelerate Your Empathic Potential, that's a journal, it's a self-audit journal or is it a self-audit workbook?
Self-assessment action planner.
Yeah, there you go. Self-assessment. Okay, yeah, action planner. Okay. And this is a self-audit, an action planner. So it's a call to acceleration for empathic influencers, the art of embodying a new empathic leaderpreneur expression to step into a higher call to service. And again, it's a self-audit and action planner. And as I mentioned before, that empaths are going to be called into these higher levels of service in the entrepreneurial strand, but also the leadership, and combining that leadership and entrepreneurial, those two aspects together, and that's the leaderpreneur. High level influencers, okay? So I'm going to come into here. Amazon only will show just a certain amount. So we're just going to see what they offer here. So, and allow myself to be just present. And as you can see on the, yeah, it is very much. Wow. And as we can see on the cover, it's like a skier that's ready to take off,
Yeah.
So that's where you have to be. Okay, so Gina, I won't put you through this to try to squint there. I'll read this. And since they're only just giving a little, we'll actually get through this, pretty quickly here. So the introduction here is accelerate your calling, embody a new empathic expression, and step into the higher call to service. So now more than ever, empaths are needed in the world, and especially in the business marketplace, to demonstrate their unique empathic gifts and abilities that are really more like superpowers. There's a higher calling during this time for empaths to take their rightful positions to serve the masses in a variety of ways through creative expression that's carried out through high-end services. It's time to accelerate this higher calling and make a difference in the world. And again, especially in the new era business marketplace, empathic influencers are hardwired for higher level services to step more into their new high-end calling as leaderpreneurs. Combining leadership and entrepreneurship will be the higher service combination for making an impact in income with lighter ascension frameworks. Empaths are sourced to be symbols of prosperity and high-end illuminated expressions in the marketplace. Yet, most are afraid or feel unworthy of charging for their works. As an empathic influencer, you can do so much good to serve in several industries when you embrace this higher level calling. You will show up in your true nature of being a holistic high-end demonstrator. I want to repeat that. A holistic high-end demonstrator. So it's time to become the embodiment of this new empathic expression through empathic leaderpreneurship. Your primary role in this initiative is to step into a new trajectory of being an empowered empathic influencer. Start learning how to consistently accelerate your success and ultimately level up to step into your higher call to service. Having a new way of empathic beingness allows you to provide for your ideal audience the truth of who you have become as your greater emergence is still unfolding. As you begin to unleash your new empathic essence in the marketplace, you will gravitate those who are most aligned to your offerings and services. Don't be surprised if you attract more empaths who are coming forth and desire to embrace more of this new empathic way. So just wanted to be able to provide, this, because that really speaks to what we've been talking about, and so I'm going to come out of here Gina, before we move forward to the other one, is there anything that you want to say off of this? Because to me, this one complements your publication of the accelerated potential
Yeah.
so much. These could be really the twin energies, if you will, for those who are really emerging at this time.
I think so. And ultimately, I think, as soon as you start to get out of your own way and those old patterns of being, that things will begin to change. But it's down to you to choose to make the shift. And, it says your primary role is to step into a new trajectory of being an empowered, empathic influencer. Now, empowered, stepping into your own power. And that doesn't mean having dominion over anybody else. It means being your true, authentic self, and recognizing that the only thing that's going to limit you is you. Empathic in the sense that your God-given gifts, using those. But the next word I think is really interesting. You are there to influence others, and not by saying, do as I do, but by being an authentic role model who shows integrity.
Absolutely.
In order to do that, you have to model what you're expecting from other people, and that is about stepping into your best self.
Oh, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And also, too, what it goes on to say, and this right here is paramount. So start learning how to consistently, when we hear the word consistently means there's something you have to do over and over, right?
Well, I think in this case, it isn't about having a pattern of doing. For me, it's about consistently a pattern of being.
Of beingness, right? And accelerating your success. So start learning how to consistently. And so, the beingness, but in the beingness, there is the doing that comes with that, meaning it has to be repeated, consistently accelerate. So it won't be enough just to accelerate one time. You have to be consistently accelerating your success, because what we know to be true is that we go through these windows and these portals of possibilities very quickly, and we can sometimes serve in different capacities very quickly, and then we're moved on because our evolution is always accelerated. And so that's why being empowered and really evolutionized, in a sense, brings you into these higher levels, to step up into these higher callings. And then that does align you with your truth, going back to what Gina just said about being authentic. So when we align with our truth in an accelerated way, we will be authentic because we'll be in our truth. When we're outside of that, we're not showing up, in our truth. So before we go over to the new high-end empathic, the other one, and then come to one there, do you feel a need to bring up anything from your stepping into your genuine power as an empath, since this is talking about being empowered, as an empath? And I'll come out of here, and we can just or I can go on over to the other one, and then you can come back to that one if you desire.
Actually, what's jumped out to me is this.
Go ahead.
It's time to create the foundation. You're a powerful being with much to offer others. Providing support and help to others comes in many forms, and many of the empaths I've worked with want to help as many people as possible, but also recognize that helping people on one-by-one basis will limit the number of people they're able to help. Time is a finite resource, as is energy, and one of the most straightforward ways to provide help for the many is to share your expertise and experience through writing.
Yes. Oh
I share my personal journey as an author and offer a structured workbook to help embrace the author within. Writing a book doesn't need to be daunting or expensive. It offers a platform which can be accessed from around the world at an affordable price, and can be the route for potential clients to recognize how you might help them. All of your experiences to date have brought you to this place. It's now time for you to experience a metamorphosis. Just as a caterpillar changes into a butterfly, you have the opportunity to have the freedom to fly and to embrace your authentic power in a whole new way.
Oh my gosh, that is so on point. How on point is that? And now this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So let's grab the sharing your empathic experience the right WRITE way, because the whole writing, yes, exactly. The whole writing premise. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a moment so that we can get a fuller screen of this. So sharing your empathic journey the right WRITE way. And so be present with that, because there may be something that comes up, because even from the publication that you were just reading out of, you were sharing about your publication, Embracing the Author from Within, which we know was then bridged into this particular one.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we know, that, and that's a good one, to share from, in terms of, as it does offer. So even if you don't have that other one, the one that you have up is fine.
There's how it started.
Yes, that's right. That's how it started, was with that one.
Then it was developed into that specifically for Empath.
Exactly, right. So since the whole writing aspect has been coming up, because we know that that's the gateway, the entry point to get started in this new aspect and unlocking the life codes. And so you go ahead and share, from that. This is amazing. I always love how these just take on a life of their own.
So stepping into your genuine power as an empath enables you to be of service and make a significant and positive difference to the very many people who need your support and help. You may think there's simply not enough of you to go around, that you don't have time to reach the numbers who really need you. You'd be wrong. Sharing your experience, expertise, your gifts with many is not only entirely possible, but absolutely and desperately needed. However, it requires a different approach. Becoming an author offers you the perfect vehicle to help the masses in an affordable and efficient way. It adds credibility and authority and is a simple way to quite literally spread the word. Just as important is that as you write the book, you also give yourself the opportunity to expand and deepen your own development. Writing acts as the vehicle which will enable you to accelerate your own evolution and to strengthen your connection to source.
How timely, how on point. Love it, love it, love it. That, wow, what can you say? That how it just all ties in.
Yeah, it never ceases to amaze me.
No, I know, right? Yes, and it's such acceleration, because there's a lot coming forth here, and especially for someone who, has never even considered any of it.
Yeah,
and understanding that this is the new way of being of an empath, and the higher level service, and how the writing, again, it is the vehicle to unlocking those encodings, but also the vehicle of expression that helps to transport their greater gifts and messages to the world, even as they're building, the higher end services and establishing that. So it's just, oh wow, it's just phenomenal.
I think it's important to say to people that the intentional journaling, the actually using these books to write. Lots of people say to me, but I'm not a very good writer, or I'm dyslexic, or I'm this, or I'm that. And I say to them, well, start with intentional journaling. Nobody's going to see that other than you, unless you choose to share it. No filters, no making up stories about my grammar's no good, or I can't spell, or all of those things. Just get your thoughts captured on paper. And what I've discovered personally, and with empaths that I've worked with, and I've worked with a lot over the years, is that by doing that, they get over that, well, I'm not a writer, because they patently are a writer. Right. You can always get somebody else to edit it and tidy it up for you, if you're so worried about your spelling and your grammar. But ultimately, it's the essence of what you have to say, the wisdom that is so important. And that if you just start to see yourself as a journaler,
That's right.
Not much of a jump then to become a writer, particularly of the style of books that we're
That
talking.
we're talking about. Right, right. And for those of you who were partake of some of these publications, you'll get to see and experience the simplicity, of it, and the type of experience that it provides. So, wow, again, I love how this just always takes a life of its own, right?
I think it's important to say to people who are watching or listening to this,
Mhm.
at the start of these sessions, I bring all of the books in. They're all in piles around me. Occasionally we've agreed on one or two that we're going to start with, but most of the time we don't have any
No,
beginning, and we certainly no more than perhaps the first one or two, and then we get called to which books to use.
right.
Open a book on which bits speaks, and usually
Right, which ones
waving
speak?
thing, take me.
Yeah, they do. And that's why I open up these sessions too, with even sharing that and just saying
Yeah.
how these sessions go and how we have a variety of the journals that are present that we've either co-authored or individual works, and we just see which ones are going to come up. Sometimes we have the ones like you mentioned that will be ones that we even think, like just now, the two that I thought were going to be the star. We started off with the one. We haven't even gotten to the other one yet.
No.
And then before we even got to the ones that I mentioned that were going to be shared that weren't present, look at how many came up in between there,
Yeah.
And some not even for the empathic strand initially, but it all served because it's just part of the experience. So yeah, and I started screen sharing to go to two of mine, and had to stop so that we could then come to this particular one. So yeah, they always take on that nature. It's just a divine flow, and we have to allow that to be. That's part of the new way of beingness as well, is just being in flow and allowing the divine guidance to facilitate the process. We show up, we're in place and in position, and we're ready to receive that wisdom and guidance in the insight, so that the higher level experience can be facilitated. We're unlocking codes today, aren't we?
Yeah, yes, a rate of knots.
Absolutely. So I'm going to come back to screen share. Just give me just a moment here. Okay. So I'm going to come over to the new high-end Empathicpreneur Accelerator, a high-end discovery journal and video training action planner for accelerated empathicpreneurs. So let's be present with this, because this is it's a discovery journal. And again, it has video trainings in there, and those would be classes, master classes, and trainings that even Gina and I have facilitated, together, and the links are, within here. So I imagine that I've written so much, so sometimes I don't remember exactly what's in all these publications, but I'm imagining it's going to have the same context in a sense. So let me just be present with this here, and then share what I feel is most relevant. So accelerate your new high-end empathicpreneur success. So in this new era business dynamics, more empaths will start to leverage their awesome empathic gifts in the arena of entrepreneurship to build successful brands, high-end empires, and show up as accelerated, illuminate, abundant leaders that are making a significant difference, excuse me. And so some of this I feel is going to be repurposed of what's been shared in terms of the importance of the acceleration and the higher calling to high-end services. And so, yeah, so a lot of this is some repurposed from the other one. But I want to come to here where actually, no, I'm going to talk about this here. Okay, so most empaths, which I did touch on this in the other one, are unsure about how to leverage their gifts and don't see themselves as entrepreneurs. Even ones that are entrepreneurs are often afraid to charge for their work. Several also deal with money issues or have financial challenges, but we've taken care of that in the rooting in New Roots, New Fruit. It's because empaths are hardwired for high-end work, and we've established that, with lighter ascension frameworks. And they are also here to offer, ding, 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 accelerated services for other accelerated leaders. The current success structures offered are not aligned for the new empathic experience. And that's why most empaths don't do well in solo entrepreneurship, meaning the traditional coaching structures and all these different things that are offered. Empaths don't really do well in those types of services. So this new high-end empathicpreneur discovery process is designed to accelerate your awareness of what it takes to level up with no delays. Let me repeat that, with no delays. And design the business frameworks that are going to be most aligned for your empathic success. Then it talks about the training videos and also the highly sensitive, high-end, the right WIRITE way that does provide the more ascension structure, and it's more lucrative and lighter. So it goes through that. So it was important to come into this, which of course they're not going to show all of that, which is good because we only just needed enough, but to provide the trigger from this. But what's most important is emphasizing the importance of the higher end service and moving with no delays in terms of creating these services and these opportunities and leveling up in this way. So having this higher discovery or this type of discovery process is vital. And as you notice, there were some key words that I kept emphasizing as it relates to, yes, the acceleration, how we're hardwired, but also no delays. So Gina, before, coming out of here to come into the other one, is there anything that you want to share just in reference, to this particular one, because this is more of an entry level to stepping into that higher end energy, even before we get into the one that you have present with you?
No, I think that you've said what needs to be said for that. That feels done.
Okay, awesome. So I'll actually stop screen sharing here.
You need to make me you've stopped the screen share. That's fine. You can make me the host at the end for the recording.
Okay, all right. So now let's get present with the, so there's two vibrations coming up now. The acceleration, the new high-end accelerator you have, but also the Profitable Phoenix Empathicpreneur.
I do.
Okay, you've got that one, and then the
have.
new high-end, and then also the new high-end.
That one.
Yes, that one. So it's interesting because even before getting into that one, the Phoenix energy feels like it's coming up. But you be present because it could be a both.
Okay. As you rise in new levels of responsibility to your power, in order to be profitable, you'll discover that as an empathicpreneur, you have superpowers that are far beyond your current perception or wildest imagination. You're not only an empath and an entrepreneur, you're a phoenixpreneur. You have the ability to powerfully rise out of your own ashes and to create a new world, just like the mythical bird, the phoenix.
So speak to that, Miss Harness Your Power as an Empath, because I feel that book will come up too. So speak to that context, from there. And even though that is my publication that you, contributed, to, But that energy is so potent, and it's important to rise, and to rise in a very accelerated way. And with this awareness, using the phoenix energy, because the phoenix, as we know, the mythical bird, has the ability to burn itself up and rise anew. And so that's where empaths during this time with the older structures have to allow that to burn and now rise with this new passion of a rebirth, and then start from there in terms of this new profitable way of leading their lives and services. Do you want to speak? Do you want to speak to that?
Because I think so many empaths get caught up in the old.
Right.
And it consistently pulls them back. So they'll make some movement, they'll accelerate, and then it's as if there's a chain around their neck yanking them back.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about a phoenix, that every vestige of the old is burnt, there's nothing that can hold the phoenix back, because everything is left in the ashes.
Mm-hmm.
There is no energy, there's no life in it. The new life is as the bird emerges out of those ashes and it takes flight. And empaths, it's time for you to step out of the ashes and to fly.
Yes, to soar, right? Yeah, so, oh my gosh. And on that note of the empathic soar, there is a publication that was not mentioned, that I did not bring up, and that is one that, one of mine that you co-authored with me, and that is the evolutionary empathic eagle one. It's for the empathic economicpreneurs.
Bear with me. You'll see.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, of course. That's right. Yeah, exactly. But also something, as you're looking for those, was there anything? Yes, there we go. But before we go there, was there anything from the harnessing your power of being an empath? Was there anything that you wanted to leverage from your publication to sort of piggyback off of this harnessing your power, your profitable phoenixpreneur power? Was there anything, or just a vibration, just anything that you would want to?
So what I've just gone to the back, and it says,
yes.
Before they can fulfill their potential in supporting others, it's imperative that they step into their genuine power and own their considerable gifts. This is not a time to procrastinate, to hide in the shadows, or to make excuses. It's time to step up, deal with past baggage, and to get out of your own way. You're very much needed.
Absolutely. If that is not the most beautiful, to the point segue into why one has to accelerate in these higher callings. I don't know what else can say it, because that did it. That, oh my gosh, that was amazing. So let me get you to do this. Bring up both of those harnessing energies. I just want to be present with those. We have this,
that one,
electrifying, this electrifying light bulb here, and then these flames, which are both representing light, right?
Yeah.
And both representing something that is very, how can I say it? It's just, oh man, I just, even when you brought those up, it just kind of did something to me, because there's so much power there.
Yeah.
And that's the type of power that empaths have to move into, that energy, into being electrifying and being the fire, being the phoenix, lighting the way, and burning up all that is no longer serving. And as you mentioned, now it's time to fly. So on that note, to complement the empathic evolutionary, that particular one, I'll have you read the title in a moment. Bring both of the energies of your two publications, the one with the leadership for Soaring to New Heights, and then the empathic one. So let's bring all three of those together.
So that one?
Yes, in that one. And then also my Soaring one. that you contributed.
Evolutionary empathic equals new high-end vantage point.
That's it. Yes. Yes. Bring those three together, because that, I know, right? That's oh, wow. So just hold them up, because I really want to be present with this here, because we've been talking about empathicpreneurship and leaderpreneurship. And so, and you started talking about the flying. It's time to fly, right?
Yep.
So bring it over a little bit more to, no, the other side, to the, okay, right here. Just a little bit more to the, come on, there we go.
Because I can't, because the
Yeah, I know, because right. So
Okay.
Soaring to New Heights is a profitable, enlightened business leader. So entrepreneurship and leadership, business and leadership, the leaderpreneurship aspect coming together. That one is speaking more to me at this point. So if, even though this is not about empaths, but it's for anyone. So be present with this one. Yes, this one here is the one that it is complementing more the energy even of the harnessing your profitable phoenixpreneur power. So yes, be with this one, and whatever comes up for you, you know, share that, and it can definitely be leveraged as a trigger for sure.
So this is interesting.
It is always.
So leveling up to lead yourself and others more effectively. Profitable enlightened business leaders recognize it's critical that they step into a new, far more expansive role if they're to achieve sustained success in the marketplace at this time. Such success requires emerging leaders to establish a totally new way of leading, one where right from the outset they recognize that their development will be ongoing. For those who are ready to embrace the challenge of up-leveling and see it as an ongoing process, there will be many opportunities. It will require them to be prepared to step significantly out of their comfort zone and ready to do the deep dive work on themselves. Established leaders need to recognize that no matter how great their achievements have been so far, there is potential for them to be so much more. If you think that echoes what we were talking about much earlier in this session.
Right, exactly.
The only limitation will be those that they impose themselves.
Well, I mean, what else can we say here? You know, how incredible is that in terms of the synchronicity?
Yeah, we've sort of closed the circle, haven't we?
Yeah, it feels like that in terms of that part, but we do have to come back, of course, to the other ones real quick, the acceleration and but that right there in terms of, yes, coming back to what we've been talking about, that right there should really solidify everything that we've spoken of, that really is the new foundation now for them to launch themselves and to take flight. Now we can get into actually talking about the higher end service and structures and everything, because they know that this is the plane in which they have to soar in, right?
Yeah.
The sky, I should say. So before we go to the empathic, the evolutionary empathic preneur, is there anything from this one? That's what I was coming to.
That one.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to read the back to you. Empaths come in many forms. One thing they all have in common is that they're uniquely placed to make a positive difference in the world. They have a divine purpose, which is to be of service using their gifts and experience to support and help others. We're living at a critical time in the development of humankind and the world we call home. As Piglet said in Winnie the Pooh, to become a butterfly, you must want to fly so much that you're willing to give up being a butterfly. Time is of the essence. So this intentional journal has been created to help those empaths who recognize their incredible potential and who have the courage to step into the light and unleash their true potential, and in doing so fulfill their potential and their destiny and help others to do the same.
Incredible. Love it.
Yeah.
Just powerful. Divine synchronicity.
So on to this one.
Okay, so you can read the title for us and the subtitle.
It's the evolutionary empathic eagle's new high-end vantage point, and it says successfully soaring with a higher impact and income perspective as an empathic economicspreneur and action planner.
Absolutely. And so that's another part of the entrepreneurial energy, is being able to be one that helps to form the new economics frameworks. And that's why the new template of a new definition empath for the finances, that trajectory plays out very differently. And that's why all the work that we're doing today and what we're talking about leads up into this. So I'm being present because it's always something about that eagle and the way he just carries himself, and he's just looking there. And it's always about a new shift in perception, because he's getting ready to take flight and he's setting his sights on somewhere. And it's important that during this time that empaths allow themselves to level up in that eagle eye advantage, level up in that phoenix energy, and see where it takes you in terms of profitability. From a holistic vantage point, because that's what it's about. But ultimately, the financial picture is the one that really needs to come into play at a higher, I would just say, yeah, in a higher context for sure. So, all right, Gina, leave that to you to be present with that.
Because empaths are accelerated evolutionary expressions, they're able
Read
to
that again.
because empaths are accelerated evolutionary expressions.
Read that again.
Empaths are accelerated evolutionary expressions.
Yes.
They're able to use their keen awareness, divine intuitive empathic abilities, and high sensitivity to advise, consult, and so much more, to make sure that the economics evolutionary process is one of accurate growth. In order to do so, empaths like eagles must be able to see from a higher vantage point for solutions to take others to higher heights and demonstrate for them not only how to fly, but successfully soar.
Incredible. Just wow. Just
Oh dear.
I tell you, these publications, they speak, don't they? They do, and just the way the synchronicities are, with them. But wow, it's just incredible. But that right there is very paramount, and provides obviously the perfect segue into, the last acceleration, publication that we have. But, so Gina, because I'm feeling something from you. So what's coming up from you from there? Because that right there was very solidifying in terms of what the high-end energy, this new vantage point is for, empaths, and really tying in what we've talked about, so far, leading up to, this grander financial trajectory, and them understanding, like their roles within this. One of the reasons why I had you to repeat 3 times about that. So it speaks to the nature of this acceleration. So anytime I hear an empath talk about, well, I'm slow, and I get it, that is not in our orientation.
No.
Now, I often say that even if you feel like you're a turtle, you have to be a turtle on rollerblades, on a skateboard, on skates. You have to be you have to be accelerated. It doesn't mean that you're that way all the time, but one thing I do know is that in your essence, in awareness, the acceleration is there, because it's an evolutionary process. So that's why I had you to repeat that, so that it anchors in them to say, you are what? You're evolutionary and accelerated. So yeah. Expression. Go ahead.
I've used this book process, and I was asked before, we'd use the process in a sense in
some sessions,
and then you asked me to write something at the beginning of the book, and I'd like to share what I got out of the experience, because I think that it exemplifies the potential when you are ready to embrace things, and how quickly things can happen. Yes. I found the experience gained through following the process within the evolutionary empathic Eagle's new high-end vantage point incredibly empowering, as it facilitated within me a quantum shift in the way in which I operate personally and with both empaths and leaders. Process is an extremely powerful tool designed to help you accelerate your evolution by exploring and expanding your approach to finance and to business. It gives the reader the opportunity to see things from the perspective of an eagle soaring high. It exposes the unnecessary complexity which constraints and limits our capacity to see things clearly and allows it to fall away. It's designed for empaths who won't settle for second best, those who are ready to take up the challenge to become evolutionary empathic economic-preneur experts. And I made a challenge in this, and in a sense, I'm using this challenge for anybody who's listening to this recording, because all of these books provide you with an opportunity. You can't use the excuse that I didn't know, that there was nothing here to help, because there's plenty here to help. However, the question is, are you ready to step up and embrace your full potential as an evolutionary empath? Will you do what it takes so you can play a major role in creating a positive and lasting change in the evolution of the economic and financial world?
Wow.
Are you ready to step up?
Woo! Are you ready to soar? Yes. Oh my gosh, it's just amazing. And how it just ties into even how your publication with the business leadership aspect is soaring in that way, and how it just all ties in, right? And that one you didn't even expect to really be in that box, because it wasn't, you know, the Empathic.
In fact, it wasn't in the box, but I saw the soaring and I made the assumption that it was the right
that it was that. Again, these publications, they have a way, don't they?
Oh, they certainly do. Yes,
they do. Okay, so let's then that was powerful for you to share your piece, you know, from there. That was just paramount for sure. So let's move into the new high-end accelerator. That's the last acceleration one, I believe. So you just had it. It's for the empaths. You just had it.
The new high-end. Yep, I've got it. Sorry.
Okay, yes. So there we are. So read the title and subtitle for us again, please.
The new high-end empathic leaderpreneur acceleration factor. An introduction to discovering your higher call to service as a leading empathic influencer, a VIP day acceleration workspace planner.
Awesome. Okay, so allow you to get present with that, because that can bring us home here in some way. There's been a lot of high-end energy built today and disruptions happening, so that they get it. This is the new high-end way, you know, and
sorry.
No, you're good. And because that one is more, you know, in the building process too, you know, it may be that there's the energy of it, if nothing, you know, if nothing jumps out or so.
I think what does shout out, again, it's this call to action. It's time to accelerate this higher calling and make a difference in the world. And again, especially in the new era business marketplace. It is time to go to stop faffing. It's time to get on.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yeah,
it's time to get on with it. And it's good that, you know, the way this is shaping up, in a sense, even not going so much into that particular one, because the grounding of all the other things, because that one would be within they start really doing the work on another level, you know, within that, and building out that higher context. So it's not necessarily the need to get so much into that. That's why I love how the divine guidance is with these sessions and you know, and the publications. So before we wrap up here, is there anything else that's jumping out to you in terms of even your publications, and maybe this is not from the Empathic, because you talked about being authentic and different things that I know you have a leadership, enlightened leadership publication in terms of authenticity. But if anything else is jumping out to you, or just anything else,
I get the sense that this is a good place for us to
do
bring
too.
it to a close.
I do too. I feel like it's very complete, but as always, I always ask.
You always check, and I'm really grateful for that. But no, I get a sense that actually people who are listening and watching this, if you've taken on board anything we've talked about, then it is about its time. And there is no time to delay. There's a plethora of resources here for you. Any one of them would move you forward. I know there'll be the details of all of the titles and so on in the notes. Just get started and get out of your own way, and that will build the momentum. And so the momentum will, it builds the momentum, and the momentum builds the momentum, so it becomes ongoing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to have you actually to come back and provide some more closing words, because there's a little bit more conversation I want to have about this before we close out. But on the note of what you said is so important. But I also want to speak to the energy of the people who are actually not stalling. The ones who were just like, this was perfect. I just not need my next step, and to know the new way. And to encourage them to now be present, in this newer vibration, in this, in this newer energy, and know that this is the way. All of what we've been sharing about the WRITE way, in a sense, because that's what it comes down to, accelerating your new empathic beingness for higher service, really the right WRITE way. Because all of these different aspects that came up, we didn't know what we were going to share today. We just knew the publications that would be present, in terms of, as I mentioned before, we just knew that the energy was about acceleration. So we would bring our accelerated resources together and just allow it to us to be guided. But it then took on the nature about the writing, and which is what started for even Gina and I doing empathic work together in facilitations, is even going back to the highly sensitive, high end, the right WRITE way, the workshop or the masterclass that Gina hosted on her platform that I facilitated, and again with our other colleague with that. So there's always been this emphasis around the writing, and that's why we've published so much. And understanding again that this is leading to the higher service, but in order to get to the truth of who you are during this time, you've got to unleash that through writing. It's unlocking your empathic encoding. It's accelerating your metamorphosis, so that then in your higher end context, this higher level service, you're going to be in that higher level bracket. You're going to be the honey at that point that we talked about for the bee. You're going to have cleared a lot of this older aspect from you that's going to serve other people, and will catch you up with your evolution, so that you can begin soaring. So there's been so much that's been provided here on so many different levels, Gina. I mean, this mind-blowing, honestly.
I think that for me, this is about acceleration.
Of course.
You can't accelerate if you're not moving.
Right.
So this has been designed for people who are on their way, who have a real understanding that they have something to offer. But ultimately, this is about movement, momentum, acceleration. If you think of an aeroplane, it starts on the runway and it starts to move, but before it gets any sort of lift off, it has to be moving at quite a pace, and then the momentum lifts it up. Birds flap their wings before they can get off the floor and fly. This is about you accelerating gathering momentum so you too can soar.
That's
And
right.
your job, if you like, your whole purpose is about recognizing what AliNICOLE talks about, the life codes, and but it's in the doing of the work, the inner work that allows you to move forward and to move quickly, that you will discover your life codes, and that you will shift those life codes to higher and higher optimization.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about.
It is, but it requires you to recognize that you are the common denominator. You are the being that has the power if you choose to own it and use it. Nobody else can do it for you. Buying the book and putting it on your shelf isn't going to do it. That's why they're intentional journals, they're actions, activities. They're not a book that's designed to, they look pretty, but they're not designed just to be pretty. They're designed to be very functional and to help you move forward. And, you know, my thanks to AliNICOLE for involving me in this, because through our conversations, it confirms my understanding, it accelerates my growth through this. But ultimately, you can accelerate, and once you make that decision to let go of the old ashes and to move forward, you will find that you can accelerate incredibly quickly.
Oh, absolutely.
You'll find that it doesn't have to be a whole big struggle. And if it feels like trying to push something, you know, bus uphill without an engine, then you are actually sitting in the ashes, and you are more engaged with the ashes than you are with the phoenix flying.
Phoenix energy. Oh my word. You know what, that right there is so powerful. That is a segment within itself, just on, you know, just on that note, because that right there is so important. And understanding, because people do come to hear different things, and it's good in the moment, and then like you said, they can purchase publications or different things, and then ultimately if they don't do anything with it, nothing's going to change. And that would be a shame, because everything has been provided, and the processes are so simple and easy. And at this point, if something feels hard, or then like you mentioned, it's really it's created because this is designed to be the higher and lighter experience. And it's hard, you would have to effort it to get in your way. That's how easy this becomes. You know, and so what I'm going to do, you know, on that note, is just kind of give what I typically, you know, would state, reiterating the motto, and then I'll turn it over to you, you know, in terms of for the final closeout. I mean, you said so much, but I had to come back just to state that, of course, I co-sign 1,000, 1,000,000%, you know, with what you shared. But that was just so important. Wow, that was tremendous there. And this has been a very full segment. And certainly it's actually gone on a little longer than what I would have even imagined, thinking we're just going to come and talk about but we never know, right? Because we're allowing.
Never know.
We never know, right? We just allow it. So I want to say that, you know, Gina and I, we have works, several works in this area, and our contact information and the publications that have been featured, but also Gina's author's page too will be in the description. I never send anybody to my author's page. That's brutal. But the publications of mine that are relevant will be in the description as well. And also just information and how you can get in contact with us. Also different levels of training hubs that we provide for the empathic, you know, community, and also just leadership. Gina has, you know, 2 main training hubs too that can help to facilitate, you know, this next level. So I just want to, of course, thank Gina, and then I'm going to invite her back to close us out. But always remember that your divine destiny, or what I say, your divine dominion destiny, isn't found in the stars or in the cards, but it is in the life codes. And we're so thankful that you've been a part of this experience. We want you to go away and be ultimately blessed by what has been provided. And there's a playlist with other segments that we have done for this series, and you can avail yourself to those. So Gina, thank you so much. I turn it over to you for the final words.
Well, thank you very much for involving me and being part of this. It feels a huge pleasure and a huge privilege. You know, if you think about the end of your days on earth, looking back, I think very few people will regret things that they have done as much as they will regret those things which they haven't. I think it would be such a tragedy, not just for you, but for, as we started off this, all of the people that you are actually here to help. If at the end of your life you had to say to yourself, I wish I'd done more, I wish I'd been braver, I wish I had listened and taken action and had learned how to soar. Please give yourself the gift of taking charge of your own destiny as an empath, and in doing so, help the many who need your help. It is time to take action. It's time to step into being the best you. And we're here to help, but we can't do it for you. It's down to you. So I wish you lots of love and lots of luck, but ultimately you make your own. It is time to take action and be the very best you can be and unlock those codes so you can help others to do the same. Thanks very much for joining us. Bye-bye now.